Samsung is one of the biggest tech companies in the world. From computers to phones to smart fridges, they are one of the most innovative and widespread companies, but not all of their products have been successful, and today we are going to look at the top 15 smartphone failures by Samsung. Welcome to one of the first long-form videos I have done. I want to do more of these going forward, so yeah. This is a lot of fun to make though, and I really hope you enjoy, and without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into the top 15 Samsung smartphone failures. Starting off the list at number 15, we have the Samsung Galaxy A01 Core. This is a phone that likely nobody was expecting on this list, but I included it for a few reasons. I did a phone reviews episode on the Samsung Galaxy A01 last year, you should check that out. But I concluded that the phone was pretty mediocre at best. With only 2GB of RAM and up to 32GB of storage, the normal A01 is not great to use normally. The A01 Core is an even worse version of that phone. There's a version of the phone that has 16GB of storage and 1GB of RAM. For a phone that was released in 2020, these are terrible specs, earning this phone a spot on the top 15 Samsung smartphone failures. At number 14, we have the Samsung Galaxy Golden, a rather strange phone. This is a flip phone that was released in 2013 with a gold design. Yeah, I've not really seen anything like this before. It's very interesting, I'll put it that way. The outer front of the phone is a touchscreen display with 3 buttons, and the inside has a touchscreen with keypads at the bottom. But I can't understand why you would need 2 displays like this. Why not just make it a regular touchscreen phone? This phone, I believe, was only released in South Korea, unfortunately. It would have been cool if it was released over here in the States. But yeah, this is a very interesting phone that wasn't particularly needed. I do like the gold design though, I can't lie. That is pretty neat. Shining at number 13, no pun intended, we have the Samsung Galaxy Beam, as some call the projector phone. Yeah, this phone has a built-in projector, a very interesting concept for a phone. Outside the projector, the phone has 768MB of RAM and 8GB of storage. Not the worst for 2012, but nothing amazing either. The projector though in this phone wasn't even that good, honestly. It was dim and not of amazing quality, but still a neat quirk of the phone. I don't know if I would have used the projector much on this phone personally, and many other people probably thought this too, as the phone didn't really sell too well. Projector is a cool feature, but it's not needed in a phone, especially since it makes the phone a lot thicker and more annoying to carry around. I do give credit to Samsung though for experimenting with this idea, and they did test this later on. We'll get to a phone like that later in this list. The Samsung Double Time is number 12 on our top 15 list. This phone, released in 2011, was kind of similar to the Samsung Galaxy Golden in that it had dual touchscreens. The front was a small vertical display and had 4 buttons at the bottom. If you opened up the phone, though, you would get a horizontal display at the top and a full QWERTY keyboard at the bottom. I have the same thoughts on this as the Samsung Galaxy Golden. Was it really needed for there to be a second screen and keyboard? It could have just been the front and that's it. Either way, this phone did not sell too well regardless. Something really obnoxious about the phone is that the keys were pink. Why pink, of all colors? But I digress. The Double Time deserves to be on the top 15 list, so here we are, we have it at 12. Coming in at number 11 is the Samsung Galaxy S6. The S6 was a flagship phone released by Samsung in 2015, along with the Galaxy Note 5. The S6 was meant to be the future of Samsung phones, replacing the plastic bill with a more glass design. The software looked a lot newer, completely different from the Galaxy S5. However, if you go online, you'll see very mixed reviews. Some people saying positive things about the phone, others saying very negative things. The battery was no longer easily removable, like most phones today, honestly. The water resistance was gone, and removable storage was also gone. The price was also raised from the S5. Many Samsung fans did not like this new design, as it seemed like Samsung wanted to change their viewer base almost, more towards a premium base instead of those who like Samsung for their phones that they made in the early 2010s. The S6 Edge was cool in that it had a curved display, which would be seen in later Galaxy S phones, but still, people had issues with these phones, and that is why the S6 is number 11 on the list. At number 10, we have the Samsung Galaxy Beam 2. This phone came out in 2014 and was the successor to the original Beam that we talked about earlier in this list. This phone had a gigabyte of RAM and 64GB of expandable microSD storage. The camera was 5 megapixels and the projector was a 20 lumen NHD projector. Some of the features of this projector, just like on the original Beam, included a quick drawing pad, mirror mouse cursor, ambient light, and customized brightness controls. This phone was nothing special, and it was very similar to the original Beam, which also flopped, so this one didn't do a whole lot better. There's not really much else I can say, except that it earned a spot as number 10 on our list. Coming in at number 9, we have the Samsung Galaxy J1, released in February of 2015. If you want a terrible phone, oh boy, this is the phone for you. This phone has 4 GB of storage and 512 MB of RAM. For a phone released in 2015, this is just terrible. And if you look at videos online of this phone, you can just see that. The J phones generally aren't great to begin with, but the J1 is the lowest of the lowest. You can't really get a lot worse than it. The only positive about the phone is that it was really cheap at the time, but still, this is just terrible. You would not want to be able to survive on a phone like this, even for that time, even for 2015 standards. Overall, just a pretty lousy phone and at best. So that's why I've placed it at number 9 on our list. Jumping through the window at number 8, okay, I have to stop with these jokes, is the Samsung Ativ line of phones. This was a series of devices released from 2012 to 2016 that ran Windows Phone OS. This included laptops, smartphones, and even desktop computers, but we're going to focus on the phones here. There were 4 phones released in the Ativ line: the S, the Odyssey, the SE, and the S Neo. We'll start with the Ativ S, which was the first Ativ smartphone Samsung released. It ran Windows Phone 8 and was upgradable to Windows Phone 8.1. The Ativ Odyssey was released in 2013 and also ran Windows Phone 8. This phone was sold for only $10 with a 2-year contract by Verizon, which was actually not too bad. Then came the Ativ SE, which I actually have, and Wikipedia interestingly describes this as a variant of the Galaxy S4 with Windows Phone OS, and I kind of see it, but yeah, I actually have this phone. It's pretty cool. It's the only Windows phone in my collection, believe it or not. The last Ativ phone was the S Neo, released in the summer of 2013. After this, the Ativ line was cancelled for smartphones. This was mostly because Windows Phone was not a great operating system on mobile, and Android and iOS were the two big competitors. Windows Phone couldn't really fit in there as a third big competitor, so it just kind of failed, which is why the whole line of Ativ phones is number 8 on our list. At number 7, which is really fascinating, is the Samsung Galaxy S Fascinate. I have to stop with these jokes. The Fascinate was one of the first Galaxy S carrier phones released, being a Galaxy S1 on the Verizon carrier. This phone's actually a phone I used to own, but due to an issue that we're going to talk about here in a minute, I don't have it anymore, and I actually destroyed it. This phone came with a lot of bloatware for the time, some that could not be uninstalled. This phone also, though, seemed to have a problem where the software would just become corrupt as time went on, like the firmware. Maybe, I'm not even sure exactly what it is, but I've seen multiple places online where this phone was corrupt, and I think it tried to go into recovery, but then it just gets stuck, and it's kind of like the no command screen you would see on early Android phones, but it just doesn't even show that. It's just nothing, and you couldn't really do anything about it. So yeah, this was a pretty terrible phone to deal with. The camera on the phone also was mediocre at best. The speaker was okay. Generally the phone was decent, besides the software, being really bloated and it corrupting. But yeah, it was so bad that I had to put this at number 7 on our list. With number 6, we have the Z line of Samsung phones. Not to be confused with the Samsung Galaxy Z line of phones now, which has all the foldables and that kind of stuff. No, I'm talking about the mid-2010s Tizen phones. Yeah, that's what the Z phone line was. The phones ran Tizen, which is an operating system made by Samsung themselves. And these phones were kind of made because Samsung wanted to push their own operating system more over Android. But the entire line is on the list here, so you can probably figure out how that went. Yeah, it didn't go too well. I never even heard about these phones really until not too long ago. That kind of tells you what you need to know about these kinds of phones. There were, I think, 4 or 5 phones released before it was shelved in about 2017. But yeah, these phones were pretty interesting, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, they did not sell well, and they were pretty bad, so the whole line makes number 6 here. At number 5, we have the Samsung Continuo, which is, I think, the third dual-screen phone of this list. This phone has 2 screens, though unlike the other phones that had this before, they're on the same side of the phone. Yeah, this one's kind of interesting. It's not a slider phone, it's like the standard smartphone you would kind of know now. However, there was a horizontal display at the bottom, below all of the touch buttons. This primarily was used for news and notifications, though this display could become really annoying really fast. Which I think it did for some people, because it was especially hard to customize it to make it say or do whatever you wanted it to do. Some other things about this phone that weren't great is that they came with a ton of bloatware. Every phone around this time did that. All like the Galaxy S carrier phones really did that, honestly. Even now they do that, honestly, for, you know, some of the cheaper phones. But the Continuum was just kind of a double whammy of terrible things about the phone. The display and the bloatware combined place it here as number 5 on our list. At number 4, we have the Samsung Galaxy K Zoom, a phone and digital camera combined into one. This isn't the only phone we'll see on this list like this, but it is still very interesting, so I'm going to talk about it. The K Zoom ran Android 4.4.2 and had 8GB of storage. The main interest of the phone here is that it had a retractable 10x optical zoom lens built directly into the back of the phone where the regular camera would go, which it did kind of look funny, but it was actually really good and it could take really good pictures and videos, so I will give it credit for that. It's a very interesting concept that has been done a couple of times. Once again, we'll talk about a phone later that is like this, but they never really sold well, so that's why it's number 4 here. Just like I literally just mentioned, here is the other phone digital camera combination on our list. The Samsung Galaxy S4 Zoom is number 3 on our list. This phone was released in 2013 and has a 10x optical zoom lens with image stabilization. Otherwise, the phone's just kind of a bit of a worse version of the standard Galaxy S4. Some features like the display and the storage were compromised, you know, slightly worse, like less storage, not as high quality of a display for the camera on the back. There is expandable storage up to 64GB, which is pretty handy because this phone only came with 8GB by default. But otherwise, besides the camera, it's just kind of like a worse version of the Galaxy S4. So that's why it's on our list here. But I do give Samsung credit for trying to go all in on this phone. It's really interesting. The runner-up for the worst Samsung phone failure is the Samsung Galaxy Fold. Samsung's first folding phone was a real disaster, honestly. Fun fact, this is not the first folding phone ever made. The Royal FlexPi was the first folding phone, but that one had problems of its own due to being kind of rushed and unfinished, so it didn't look too well. But it was still very interesting. The Galaxy Fold had a couple of major problems, though. The first main issue was that the screen on the outside was extremely small, and the inner display didn't even look amazing either, especially with the top right kind of bit where the cameras were. It just didn't look right. It looked off. But the other major problem with the phone, and this is probably the bigger one, is that the inner screen could be easily peeled. Some people peeled it thinking it was like a screen protector, but then once they did that, the phone would just like freak out and stop working properly. So yeah, not a great first attempt at folding phones, but Samsung would improve, and I think they make the best folding phones now, honestly. They're really good. I have a Z Flip 3, which unfortunately is kind of broken, but that was, I think, my favorite phone to use for a couple months until I broke it. And finally, at number 1, for the worst Samsung smartphone failure, I'm sure this isn't a surprise at all, the Samsung Galaxy Note 7, or as some would say, the ticking time bomb. Yeah, this phone had problems where it would just, you know, explode randomly. Just what phones are intended to do, right? Like, that's all we buy a phone for, just for them to explode in our pocket. Okay, on a serious note though, this was a complete disaster. The Samsung Galaxy Note 7 released in 2016, and original reviewers praised it. Even looking back at it now, I think it's a gorgeous phone, and it has amazing specs, honestly. However, problems quickly arose. The battery inside the phone was crammed in there, and it didn't really have a lot of space, which would eventually have the positive and negative parts of the battery to touch, which would lead to... yeah. This phone was then recalled. Samsung claimed to have fixed them, sent them back out, claiming that, you know, oh, they were all fixed and it's gonna be good now, you have a safe Note 7. But then they started exploding a second time. This was a complete failure. Eventually, Samsung pushed out a software update that bricked any existing Note 7s so that nobody could use them past a certain battery percentage, and eventually they pushed out another update, making it so the phone would just not turn on, period, if it had any battery. So you would have to send it back in and get rid of them. There still are some Note 7s out there, but they are very hard to come across. But this was a complete disaster that somehow Samsung actually managed to recover from, and pretty quickly at that, with the Note 8 doing really well the next year. But with the huge impact of this phone potentially being able to explode on you, earns it number 1, the worst Samsung smartphone failure on our top 15 list. And that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. This was a lot of fun, and also a lot of work to do. I didn't really realize how much this would take, and I'm sure the editing isn't amazing. This, honestly, that is kind of because it's rushed, but yeah, this took a lot of time, actually, so about a week or so of on and off editing. But yeah, I'm gonna do more of these videos, hopefully improve too with like the editing in the future, because I know this one wasn't amazing, but I'm gonna try to improve more going forward. And yeah, we're gonna see more videos like this in the future, so stay tuned for that. Until then, I'll see you later.